Sitting here on Sunday, and I thought something happened, and I think Spurs weren't happy with a few decisions that were made on Sunday. And many people always say that this will eventually match up in the end of the season. I'm not one of them that believes that, because sometimes you can be unlucky in the season, or you can be lucky in the season. Yeah, on Sunday a decision went against them. Maybe today a decision went in favour of them.
Yeah, look. I spoke about it after the game last time. I think that my comments were misinterpreted. I didn't criticise the referee or the decision. I didn't think the decision was right about the handball, but I said that it's very hard at the moment. It's very confusing to understand certain elements of the game. Now, we've been told consistently the last few weeks, because I've been screaming at it from the sidelines, because a lot of teams have got away with a lot of fouls with us without bookings because the referee plays advantage. And we've been told consistently, if we play advantage, as long as it's not a cynical foul, then the player does not get cautioned. So that's been relayed to us on a weekly basis, because we feel like that's been happening. That was one of the things I was kind of, bemoaning last weekend. There was certain players who just repeatedly were fouling. We were getting advantage, but no bookings. I know I'm going to be the old bloke in the stands who keeps shouting boo every time VAR, and I'll be the only one, but I just thought people would be a little bit more protective about the sanctity of the game. That's what I was talking about. Like, I wasn't criticising referees. I've never criticised. Like I said, I didn't think the decision was right, but it's just the way the game. I think there's a lot of confusion at the moment. That's my belief, that the game is changing on the basis of technology. And I'm saying, why isn't anyone speaking up about it? Especially in this country, who, for all intents and purposes, you guys think you're the custodians of the game. You've got a song that says it's coming home. This is your game, and yet it takes an Aussie from the other side of the world to be the one that's most conservative about changes.
Zat Knight joins us. We'll be hearing from Zat in a moment. Craig obviously went with us yesterday.
What is he changing? What's he trying to say?
He's
the only one out there flying the flag.
Yeah, it seems a strange thing to be trying to kind of convince people.
I've liked a lot of things that he has done, and he is a manager under pressure at the moment, and he has a raft of injuries. Some of may, and we've discussed this, been caused by his methods and his training. Some maybe not. I just feel this, and I felt this announcement where the referee yesterday told everybody what they could see on the big screen, that it was going to be off. The goal has been ruled out for offside. Oh, really, Sherlock? I mean, come on. I mean, that's not solving anything. So I thought that was a bit of a waste of time, bit of a gimmick, really. But from Postecoglou's point of view, these interpretations and this technology is not really his concern at the moment. His big concern is getting this Tottenham ship sailing in the right direction again. And yesterday went a big way to doing that. Now, what was the interpretation of the second challenge on Bergvall? Did he probably get it wrong? Yes, should have been a second yellow. And I don't agree with Postecoglou saying that the referees have allowed the advantage and therefore they don't go back. They generally always go back when they can and book the player if there's been a bad challenge. But Tottenham got away with that yesterday. And hey, you take it as players, as a manager. You take it, I think, some context to the game itself. They're playing the weekend apart when they had a bad day against Liverpool, Manchester United. They're playing the best team in England by a stretch, who played a strong team. Tottenham have an incredible raft of injuries. They lose Bentancur after 10 minutes to a very nasty looking sort of neck stroke head injury. It took 10 minutes or so to get him off the field. And yet they're still able to create chances and beat this Liverpool side. I think that was a big shot in the arm for Tottenham yesterday. I mean, it was a bit of a scrappy game.
Stevie said, rubbish game. It was the referee who decided it, basically.
Well, listen, again, I want to just give some context here. A purring Liverpool and a struggling Tottenham. And then you lose the most experienced midfielder you've got in Bentancur early in the game. And I did agree, Bergvall, the youngster in the game against Newcastle and the game yesterday again, was absolutely superb. Absolutely fantastic to see, and he took his goal well. I thought Dominic Solanke led the line brilliantly, and I think that was amplified by his role in the goal to sort of fend off Konate, hold the ball in, get turned and play a fantastic weighted pass. That pass to Bergvall looked simple, but it had to be weighted perfectly for him to take the strike and Van Dijk not to be able to intercept it. So I think from where Tottenham were, there was a lot of good things yesterday, albeit they got a rub of the green with the Bergvall non-sending off for the second yellow. And it's up to Liverpool to do more, and they did not. So I really felt this was about Tottenham yesterday, bearing in mind, and you said it on the show, if Liverpool had gone there and taken 3 or 4 goals off them, nobody would have really batted an eyelid, but it didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen, but I'm intrigued to get your interpretation, Shaq, on these comments from Ange about the rules and about how the game is changing. Because from the outside looking in, and we watch a lot of football, I don't really see it.
I don't understand what Ange Postecoglou is talking about at all. And I'm like Greg, I'm a huge fan of Ange and all that he continues to do. I was very critical of him on the weekend with the Spurs Newcastle game. And similarly, I'm not sure what to make of anything he just said. On the one hand, he's saying he wasn't critical of the referees, but in his post-game press conference, he just sticks to this one line that had all things been even, we would have won the game. Now, how is any logical person supposed to interpret that otherwise? I also don't see these huge changes in the game that he's talking about. VAR has been in. England has been the slowest to adopt and change different things about VAR, how it's applied. While we could be critical of the referee or question why there are these announcements in the stadium to explain decisions. Some people have been asking for it. I don't see the point in it. I don't feel the referees have to justify.
Gimmicky, isn't it?
Well, but then to Postecoglou's point, talking about an Australian coming in to do it, we've seen this in the A-League for 4 or 5 years.
But it hasn't changed. The football fundamentally hasn't changed.
It's
because
absolutely
of these rules.
bemusing. Everything about it is bemusing. And the trouble is, this game just comes at you quickly. While you're that critical around a missed call, 3 or 4 days later, you now benefit from one. And you're now having to somehow walk back what you said because you realize, Postecoglou's statements aside, I think we have to give Spurs a lot of credit for the result. Bentancur goes down with what certainly on the face of it at the time, and it's good to see him come out afterwards and say that he's doing fine and on the road to recovery. But the last time we saw somebody go down that I can recall in a major circumstance like that was back in the Euros with Denmark and Christian Eriksen, and you remember how that affected the team. Now, I've sat here and said, you give a team an excuse to lose a game, 9 times out of 10 they'll take it. Spurs had every excuse to lose against Liverpool, and they did not. And I think they need to be credited for that, for the way that they somehow gathered themselves. And while we could talk about Liverpool not being anywhere near as good as they had been all season, Man United game apart, I think you also have to give the opposition credit for that. Give Spurs credit for keeping Liverpool as quiet as they were. That's a huge step. That's a huge step for a Spurs that had been struggling. And as I've been saying, post-Newcastle, focus on the good things with Spurs. But yet still we're here kind of talking about referees' announcements, which to me just
but
makes
he didn't.
no
I know Zach's waiting. Don't want to keep him hanging, but he won't be the first. So I just briefly on this. Wasn't yesterday a press conference where he has said a lot recently, and he's been kind of irked by some of the questions. But bearing in mind, okay, it's only one leg. You've just beaten Liverpool at home with a very inexperienced squad and back four. Wasn't that the time just to say, when asked about the Bergvall thing, well, maybe we just got away with that one. But I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about my team's brilliant performance against, which he called before the game, the best team in the world at the moment. Now, that's a stretch, but they're certainly the best team in England at the moment. And just to talk about young Archie Gray, and to talk about Jed Spence and the job that he's done coming out of the wilderness, really, to play right back, left back, centre back. Talk about Bergvall's performance, and talk about all these issues and how proud he was of his players on that night, and how they approached it. They kept a clean sheet. They beat the team top of the league, and they've given themselves a great chance. I just don't. I think the more he delves into this, and it's kind of, it's to the journalists at the press conferences, this is gold.
Yeah, of course, because he could have talked about all those things, but it gets lost.
Yeah.
Everything is then lost because this is the headline we grab hold of, because this is what is.
And he goes down this rabbit hole with it, and all of a sudden there's quotes galore.
Yes.
And sometimes as a manager that can come back and bite you in the backside.
Spurs fans will say, well, the first yellow card wasn't a yellow on Luis Diaz. But anyway, Zach, what's interesting, I thought, from what he was saying, is about how much football has changed. Is he right? Are people calling for it to go back to the old days?
I mean, yes, people do want it to go back, because if we're bringing in the VAR, we want it to be spot on all the time, and it's not doing that. So if we're not gonna be spot on all the time, then let's just go back to the old fashioned with the referee and be understandable of the mistakes and pull it down to human error, instead of the VAR coming in and still not giving 100% answer, and we're still left in that bit of a grey area.
See,
I was going to say, has the game changed with handball or not? Because did we ever know what was a handball, and we still...
So, that's the thing for me. No, anytime human beings are involved, there's going to be debate. It cannot be 100%. Yeah. We sit here in this studio, look at things over and over in all kinds of different angles,
when you're talking about
and we still can't agree. We still can't agree. Now you're asking somebody to make a decision in a limited amount of time and expect everybody to agree with that decision. It's not. We are not going to get unanimous agreement on one decision or another. But I will keep saying this. VAR is a nuisance when it punishes you. It's great when it helps you. You're in a cup final and somebody's offside by a couple of inches or a foot or two that the linesman on the sideline doesn't recognize. You cannot tell me that, yeah, we'll take the loss. We'll take the loss in the final because we really tired of VAR. We don't want to wait 3 or 4 minutes for them to look over this decision. When you have as much money involved in the game as it does today, you have to help officials. It's great when it goes your way. It's an absolute nuisance when it doesn't. That doesn't make VAR bad for the game.
You're trying to minimise the amount of mistakes.
No, it's it. That's it. It's done.
Take an example, and I think the offside law, it is frustrating when somebody's off with a big toe or something like that, because that's not the way the law was initially written in terms of gaining an advantage. But that's where we are, and if you take automated offside into it, it's going to be even closer. But say, for example, if VAR wasn't at the game yesterday, as it hadn't been in the rounds before, then Tottenham take a 2-0 lead into that game because Dominic Solanke, the goal stood. The assistant's flag did not go up because he looked as if he timed the run perfectly, but the technology comes in, and I can't remember, but it's inches. It's not far at all. Now, I don't necessarily... I think it's a law when we're talking about inches that is very frustrating in terms of clear daylight, but it's minimising those human mistakes, but it's not completely ruling them out. And I don't know, I thought both managers were a little bit off colour yesterday in what they were saying. Maybe less so Hislop, but certainly Ange Postecoglou.